Hi, I'm Drew and welcome to my channel, The Seamstress. This channel is documentation of my journey into vintage and historical sewing. There's some great tutorials here, and there's also an alternative learning method where you learn from my mistakes. But if you watch, you will see that growth and improvement are definitely possible when you work at it and trust the process. If that is something that you're into, I hope you decide to subscribe and stick around. There's definitely going to be some interesting things happening here. If this is not your first time here, then welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again, and I appreciate your support on my previous videos. So, with all of that said, my previous make I wasn't that happy with, so taking everything that I've learned from that experience and the couple before it, I've decided that for this video, I'm going to be making a dress that I'm pretty sure I'm going to love. I really took my time when choosing this, and so I think it's going to be a great one. This is actually an authentic vintage pattern, not a vintage reproduction pattern, which I've been using on my previous videos. And I purchased this on Etsy. I will leave a link in the description box below to that shop. They had some really great vintage patterns, and so if you want to check that out, I will leave a link in the description box below. So I'm very excited to make this dress. I think it's going to be a really good one. And so I'm excited for this process, and I'm looking forward to jumping right into it. I hope you stay to the end so you can see all the pictures of me wearing the finished garment, and I hope to see you in my next video that is short and soon to come. I am so excited to use this pattern. It's like nothing I've ever had before. I always use the reproductions. This is the first authentic vintage pattern that I have purchased. I feel lucky to even have it, and so I'm excited to use it. It came in really good condition. There's a little bit of wear and tear on the envelope, but that's to be expected for something that's 70 years old. As you can see, the pattern is still factory folded. The paper does show signs of its age, and it feels a little fragile to the touch. I feel like I should have on gloves to even handle this, so I'm going to be as gentle as possible. Looking over the instructions, they seem as what I expect from a vintage pattern, a little vague, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and I'm going to dive right in. It doesn't look too complicated of a dress. There's not a lot of pieces. Looking at the pattern pieces, I realize I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone because there is no writing at all on the pattern pieces. There's only holes, and they all mean different things. But there's no glossary or any explanation of what these holes mean, and so I hope that shows up later in the instructions. I'm laying out the pattern pieces, which is even a little tricky just because I'm not exactly sure which ones to cut on the fold, and there's really no explanation. I later discovered that the 3 dots that are close together mean those are the pieces to cut on the fold. And I figured that out just by reviewing the directions and seeing which pieces would have to be stitched together and the number of each piece. And so then I proceeded with cutting the pattern pieces out. I'm using my weights here because I did not want to use pins on this paper, just because I didn't want to cause it any damage in any way. And so I was extra careful with this process, and I only did a few pieces at a time. One, because my table really isn't big enough for such a wide skirt, but also because I just wanted to be as protective of this pattern as I could be. I then picked out a coordinating thread and wound my bobbins and got my machine all ready to go for the process of stitching this dress together. I am now transferring all of those perforations that were on the pattern piece. I'm not sure exactly which ones are going to be useful and which ones I really don't need, but I'm just going to transfer them all so that way I don't run into any difficulties later. The first thing I'm instructed to do is to attach the side backs to the back piece, and so I matched up the notches and pinned the pieces together before heading to the sewing machine. At this point, I'm feeling really comfortable and confident with this dress, But I think I always feel like that about this stage. I keep waiting for that make that just goes exceptionally well and turns out exactly the way that I envisioned it to. But I'm trying to relax and enjoy the process a little bit and understand that this is just the fourth dress that I have ever made for myself. And so it will take time to get there, and that's okay. The same kind of goes for this channel. Sometimes I wonder, am I spending all of this time making these videos that will never even be viewed? Sometimes I let my mind go to the possibilities that could happen if people did decide to follow my journey and watch these videos and the new avenues that could open up for me. It's not that I started this channel for that to happen, but here lately it feels as if the more time I take away from my family to do these, it's almost like I feel as if I need that validation from people watching them. Most mothers know that feeling of not having anything that's just for you and then feeling guilty when you do. And we really need to get over that. It's okay to do something that is just for you and that offers you nothing in return but the joy that you get from doing it. And that is reward enough, or at least it should be. For the reason that sewing and now this YouTube channel are two things that I truly enjoy, and that shouldn't need an excuse or a reason or validation. So what you've seen me do to the dress, I stitched the center front seams and pressed them open, and I stitched the side seams, leaving the left side open above the notch for the placket, and pressed the seams open. And then I also made 2 rows of gathering stitches. And the pattern pieces showed where these should start and stop by using small dots and medium-sized dots. And with the skirt all together, it's time to work on the bodice. This is the back piece, and this is where the darts will be. And as you can see, I have those marked as well as the small circles around the armholes. These are the 2 front pieces. I have the darts pinned in place as well as the buttonholes marked, and you can see the really nice scallop detail that will be in the front where the buttons go. And this is what the front looks like with the darts all stitched in, and I'm really pleased with how they came out. So the next thing to do is to stitch the 2 front pieces to the back piece at the shoulder seam. And I matched up all of the notches before I pinned the pieces in place, just to make sure that everything was laying as it should, where it should. This piece is the facing for the front. I have it pinned together where it should be stitched at. And then they also want me to fold back this edge and stitch it. The instructions don't state specifically how much of the edge to fold back and stitch, but based off of the image and my better judgment, I'm just going to do this much. And now I have the facing all pinned in place. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. This scalloped edge has me a little bit nervous, but we're going to give it our best shot. And just as I suspected, it was not easy at all to sew that scalloped edge and to have it really look like a scalloped with those clean, sharp lines. And so I've decided I'm going to have to just straight stitch this down and maybe save that for another make when I have a little bit more experience. So I struggled with the scallops so much. I kept trying to get them I couldn't get them to really look like scallops. They just kind of looked like blobs. And so I decided to just sew it straight, and then I trimmed off the seam allowance, and now I'm going to turn the facing. I don't really know yet what this is going to mean for the button placement and how this is going to look in the front, but I'll just figure out how to fix that when I get to it. But looking at, like, I'm not upset with the shape. I'm just a little disappointed because I really did like the scallops. But I'm going to press this down and kind of see what we have. Okay, so I flipped the facing, and I'm just a little disappointed with the fact that I wasn't able to get the scalloped edge the way that it was supposed to be, because I really liked that detail. It still looks nice. What I liked about the dress and what made it not so plain was that scalloped edge detail. I haven't done the sides yet, so once I do those, we'll be able to see more of what it really looks like, but I think it still looks nice. I'm a little disappointed just because it seems like things never go as planned for me, or they never go like as I hoped they would go. But I love the style of this dress, and I still love the fabric, so I think I'm still really gonna love the dress. So I'm gonna get these side seams done, and then I'll be able to do a more proper fitting and kind of figure out where the buttons are gonna go. As I stitched the side seams, I got over my disappointment in the front of the bodice a lot quicker than I thought I would, and proceeded on. So I'm going to put my buttonholes, the first one 1 inch from the top, and then I'm going to put the rest 2 inches apart. So as you can see, I have the buttonholes completed. Luckily for me, my machine does the hard work. This being only the second time I've ever done buttonholes, I'm not really sure what they should look like, or if I'm doing this correctly, or if there's an easier or more efficient way of doing this. So if you have any tips and tricks for buttonholes, if you could please leave them in the comment box below, that would be most helpful. I was going to hand cover buttons for this project, but I remember I had these for another garment that I planned on making. I hope I don't regret it later when it's time to make the other dress. I have their position marked, and I will now sew them on by hand. Like, this looks so good. The buttons look awesome on this bodice, and I am thoroughly pleased with the way it's come out, even without the scallop detail. I think the scoop neckline is so flattering that it makes up for the scallop detail being missing just a bit. I love the sleeves as well. The puff shape is amazing. Sewing the channels for the elastic was something I hadn't done before, but it was fairly easy to figure out. And so now I'm fitting the sleeves into the arm side, matching up the notches and pinning in place, and just working out the excess fabric until it lays smooth. And so far, this dress hasn't went 100% according to plan, but it is coming out very well, and it's almost completed. Once I get these sleeves stitched in, I will then have to attach the bodice to the skirt, hem it, and put in the placket for the snaps, make the belt, and it will be completed. And so here is the bodice attached to the skirt. It was fairly simple. All I had to do was gather down the skirt between the notches until it matched up, and then just attach. And then this is the space that's open for the placket. I actually raised the waist by almost 2 inches, and that was the first time I had made an alteration to something for no other reason than to fit me better, and that was something that was great. And so I hemmed the dress, and it looks really good. The only thing left to do is to do the placket for the snaps. They said to put a hook at the waistline, and then the rest will be snaps. I didn't have a buckle for the belt, and so I just attached snaps. They don't look that great, but they don't look that bad either. And so there's the belt. There's nothing left to do but the placket. I've never done a placket before, and so I don't know what to expect, but I'm hoping it's not too difficult. And this is the finished garment. I am thoroughly pleased with how this dress came out. I really love it, and I really enjoyed the process, which was a great experience, as I did not enjoy the last sewing make as much. And so this was a great way to get me recharged for my next project, and I hope you decide to stick around in order to view that one.